Have you ever noticed how some people know exactly what to say to get under your skin? Maybe it's a coworker who slips in one sarcastic comment during a meeting, and suddenly you're defending yourself instead of your work. Maybe it's a family member who brings up the same old mistake every holiday because they already know you'll react. Or maybe it's a stranger online who writes one sentence, and somehow they've stolen the next 20 minutes of your day. It feels like they're controlling you. But here's the uncomfortable truth. They're not controlling your emotions, they're predicting them. And once someone can predict your reaction, they don't have to control you. They only have to press the right button. That's why the Stoics believed emotional discipline wasn't just about inner peace. It was about protecting your freedom. Because the easiest person to manipulate is the one whose next move is already known. Most people think emotional control means hiding how they feel. That's not what Stoicism teaches. Imagine someone insults you. The average person reacts almost instantly. They defend themselves, raise their voice, fire back with another insult. They think they're standing up for themselves, but something else just happened. The other person successfully chose their behavior. The moment your emotions become automatic, your decisions stop being entirely yours. This is exactly what Epictetus warned about when he taught that people are disturbed not by events themselves, but by the judgments they make about those events. The insult wasn't the real trigger. Your interpretation was. And if your interpretations never change, neither do your reactions. That's when people stop guessing. They start predicting. Think about someone you've known for years. You probably know what annoys them. You know what makes them defensive. You know which subjects to avoid, and which ones will guarantee an argument. Now ask yourself something uncomfortable. How predictable are you? If criticism always makes you defensive, if rejection always makes you desperate, if disrespect always makes you angry, then people don't need to manipulate you. They simply have to wait for you to manipulate yourself. Here's what makes this even more dangerous. Most emotional reactions don't begin with emotions. They begin with attachment. Someone questions your intelligence. Why does it hurt? Because you've attached your identity to being seen as smart. Someone ignores your message. Why does anxiety appear? Because you've attached your peace to someone else's attention. Someone gets promoted instead of you. Why does resentment grow? Because you've attached your worth to status. The Stoics understood that every emotional trigger points towards something you've handed over to the outside world. And whatever lives outside your control can eventually be used against you. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that another person's actions belonged to them. His response belonged only to him. That sounds simple, until someone embarrasses you in front of other people, until your boss criticizes your work, until your partner says something unfair. That's when philosophy becomes practice. Here's where most people get Stoicism completely wrong. They think the goal is to stop feeling. It isn't. The goal is to stop obeying every feeling. There's a difference. Imagine someone cuts you off in traffic. The emotion arrives before you choose it. That's normal. But what happens next is where freedom begins. Most people merge emotion with action. I feel angry, so I act angry. The Stoic separates them. I feel anger. Now I decide what deserves my response. That single pause changes everything, because a pause forces reason back into the conversation, and reason is difficult to manipulate. You can see this in almost every area of life. At work, the employee who stays calm during criticism usually earns more trust than the one who immediately argues. In relationships, the person who listens before reacting often ends conflicts faster than the person trying to win them. Even online, the people with the strongest presence rarely respond to every insult. Not because they can't, because they don't have to. Every reaction costs attention, and attention is one of your most valuable resources. The world is full of people competing for it. Outrage sells, drama spreads, arguments attract clicks. If you react to everything, you're allowing other people to decide where your mind spends its time. That's a dangerous habit, because eventually your life becomes a collection of other people's priorities instead of your own. So how do you become harder to manipulate? Start asking one question before every emotional reaction. What story am I telling myself? Not, what did they say? Not, how do I feel? What story turned those words into this emotion? Maybe the story is, if they criticize me, I'm a failure. Maybe it's, if they reject me, I'm not enough. Maybe it's, if I don't defend myself immediately, people will think I'm weak. Challenge the story before you obey the emotion. That's where real control begins. The Stoics practiced this every day, not because they expected life to become easier, because they expected people to remain human. There would always be criticism, always disappointment, always unfairness. The only reliable defense was improving their own judgment. And that's the shift most people never make. They spend years trying to control difficult people. The Stoics spent their lives learning to control the only person they actually could, themselves. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, remember this. Your first emotion isn't your weakness. Your automatic reaction is. The moment you stop giving instant reactions, you stop giving people a map to your mind. And when your choices come from reason instead of reflex, something remarkable happens. People become less capable of steering your behavior. Not because you've become cold, not because you've become mysterious, but because your character, not your emotions, decides your next move. That's the kind of freedom the Stoics were after. And once you experience it, you'll realize emotional control was never about suppressing feelings. It was about making sure no one else gets to write your next move but you.